Hey, I'm Matt, and this is my friend Jacob, and today we are going to talk about situational decision making, which just sounds like a lot of syllables and something very boring until you illustrate it with baseball, which is what we're going to do. So Jacob is going to pitch to me, and for your safety and the future of your family, I need you to wear that. It's okay. It's hardly even used. Just take it. Put it on. Take it. Most of the time in baseball, it just makes sense to try to put the ball in play with a conservative, high percentage, low risk swing. And this is what that kind of swing looks like when I do it. But every now and then, there's a situation in a game where it makes sense to just swing as hard as you can like a reckless idiot and try to hit the ball out. Now for me, that is a completely different kind of swing than my normal conservative safe one, and it looks something like this.
32 degrees is hot. Come on. Oh, did they make it?
In the second part of Acts chapter 17, Paul's got some situational decision making he has to do. He's in Athens, which is the headquarters of Western thought. It's one of the most influential places in the history of the whole world, and even more so at that moment in history. So of course, Paul could have taken the conservative swing in Athens by talking to sympathetic Jewish people or non-Jewish people in the same circles or in the marketplace like he normally did. But instead, he's going to swing for the fences by taking the message of Jesus to these elite intellectual influencers who are shaping the whole world from Athens. That's a bold play, but if he connects, it's going to be a huge win for the gospel and the church and the whole Jesus thing. On the other hand, if he whiffs and comes away from Athens with nothing to show for it, that's going to be seen as a squandered opportunity. But beyond that, I think a passage like this also raises great questions for us today about how to talk with people about Jesus in general, and we'll kick that stuff around at the very end. So part one of this story opens with Paul going to Athens alone. His buddies normally go with him, but they're back in Berea because of how things shook out at the last stop. And so Paul plays it conservatively as he gets started. He goes to the Jewish synagogues, has the conversations like he normally would. We don't get a sense of really whether it was effective or not, but we do know that a group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers overhear him and become fascinated with what he's talking about. Now, nobody at this time would have imagined that one region or one ethnicity's God could even possibly be the God of another people. It wouldn't even occur to them that he would be trying to persuade them to believe in this. It just sounds like a foreign philosophy, and they love new philosophies. So they invite Paul to come to their fancy philosophy club, the Areopagus, which is like the fanciest, best, most impressive elite philosophy club ever. And so Paul is going to walk into this thing all by himself. Now, I would be filling my trousers if I had to do that because this is the big leagues and I'd have no support. But Paul is pure hero. He's going to go swing for the fences. Whether he strikes out or not, he's taken a huge risk and demonstrating tremendous bravery to walk into this situation. This next speech happened with Paul standing in this place looking at this thing with all the people gathered around, and you can still go stand there and see it for yourself, which is a cool reminder that this is not a Fantasyland document. This is a thing that happened in a place at a time with real people and recognizable names, and it was written to its contemporaries, and they would have been able to fact check it to say that's actually how this thing went down. Very cool. Okay, rabbit trail over. So Paul's in front of these hugely influential, smart people, and he steps into the batter's box and just starts swinging away. He says, "Hey guys, I've been all around your town, and I can see that you're super religious and that you even have this unknown God. And I want to tell you a little bit about that God. This God that you don't know anything about is the God who is the prime mover, the one who initiated all the things and made existence happen." Now, in doing this, he was connecting with them on a concept that they'd embraced pretty wholeheartedly for several hundred years by this point. This concept that something initiated everything and that there is an ordering force is something that people from all different perspectives agreed on to at least some extent. This came from somewhere. But then Paul goes on to personalize it. And he says, this God who has been distant from you, but who you've been aware of, has now drawn close. And the time for worshiping gods made out of rocks and stone and gold and things like that has passed. And hey, no harm, no foul, hey, we all make mistakes, but now this God calls on you to respond to him. And so what Paul does is he tries to weave some of their own stuff in with the truth of Christ to try to bring them along in a way that won't feel completely foreign. It's an interesting play, and it's definitely a swing for the fences. So Paul wraps up his speech by saying that God has offered proof of all this stuff that Paul's saying to them by raising Jesus from the dead. And at that moment, I kind of picture everything getting real quiet, and maybe there being some crickets or mic feedback or a tumbleweed rolling through. They sneered at this. They just didn't have a concept of physical resurrection and viewed it as kind of simpleton thought. They viewed the physical body as being here, the spiritual self as being here, and when the physical died, that was actually kind of a good thing, and then the spiritual would go on to whatever they believed was next. So they weren't angry, like nobody got hit with rocks. That's kind of refreshing, but the response was lukewarm at best. Paul left the assembly after that, and it says a couple people, some guy named Dionysius and some lady named Damaris, responded, but that's about it, and then Paul is on to the next town. So obviously Paul was swinging for the fences here, but the question we're wrestling with is, did he connect? Was it any good? Now, one way to think about that would be to say, are you convinced? Did this persuade you? But I think a better question yet would be to say, would this have been persuasive to you if you were a first century Athenian? That's a harder question. Well, some people with that in mind would say, yes, he knocked it out of the park. He walked into an impossible situation against impossible odds and found an ingenious way of fusing truth these people accepted with truth they didn't know yet. He introduced new concepts and he pushed them, and some people even responded, and this planted the seeds for the whole of Athenian, Greek, Western culture eventually responding to this thing. So nice job, Paul. But some other people who are also smart might say, Paul is courageous, and this was a great play, a great aggressive swing on his part, but he just missed. It happens. It's okay. The mistake that he made is that instead of sticking to his bread and butter, he tried to get a little too cute and a little too inventive with the thing, and the message was obscured, and he put the resurrection thing out there too soon, something he knew they wouldn't sign off on, and he just misplayed his hand. And that's okay. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, though. Only a couple of people signed up. Well, look, either of those you could make a good case for, and I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts on the thing are. This is a passage about how Christians communicate the message of Jesus to people who aren't Christians. And if you're watching this and you're not a Christian, this might sound like creepy and scheming to you, but here's the honest truth. If a Christian believes that there is a God who made people and loves people and understands the plight of humanity and is doing something about the plight of humanity to redeem and make stuff better, you kind of want to give that away. You kind of have to give that away. Now, the issue isn't so much whether or not you tell other people about Jesus if you're a Christian. The issue is more how. Because there are really crappy ways to do it, and there are really effective ways to do it. But there are also different situations that you find yourself in, just like Paul found himself in a really unique situation here. And Christians might find themselves in a situation where you're with somebody who just frankly doesn't have very long to live. Or you're with somebody who frankly you're probably never going to talk to again. Maybe there is the moment to just graciously put it out there completely and bravely, and whatever happens, happens. Maybe there are other times where you're in a long relationship with somebody who you're going to be friends with either way because you just like them and you care about them. But it's okay to play the long game, to take that conservative swing and to say, I'm going to treat this person well. I'm just going to be loving and respectful and a really good friend. And they're going to know where I stand on this stuff, and we'll chip away at it over time. And again, what will be, will be. Now, neither of those is necessarily right or wrong, but there's just some common sense and finesse that has to go into this thing. And ultimately, just like Paul discovered here, whether or not everybody signs up isn't even really about the person saying the message. It's about the person responding to the message. Jesus said from the beginning, some people are going to be into this, some people aren't going to be into this, and that's okay. We can trust that to God. But I think it's worth thinking about what approach we take in given situations to trying to tell people about this really important thing in a way that is always filled with the love and grace of the message we're communicating. I look forward to your thoughts on this one and also to your withering critiques of my baseball swing. Bring them on. I'm Matt. We'll catch you soon.
My fingers are frozen.
Ari, imagine hitting baseballs. Operation Save Tina's Life.
Save me. Thanks, buddy.